So our next speaker, Natasha Woodgate, is an occupational therapist who helps people, young, old, everyone in between, navigate their daily lives more easily. From household adaptations to practical physical tips, she is a font of knowledge and recently held a webinar for us on navigating the education system. Natasha is here today to speak on navigating and managing fatigue with Marfan syndrome, and she's especially qualified to do so as she has the condition herself. Welcome, Natasha.
Hello, thank you for
Hey.
having me. Hi. So I need to share my screen. So let me just get to grips with the technology first. Hold on. I need this one. Share. Right. Hopefully everyone can see that. Victoria, let me know if you can't.
We can.
Um, good, good. Well, thank you for having me along today. So I've come to talk about managing fatigue with Marfan syndrome, but from an occupational therapy point of view. So I'm very practical based as an occupational therapist. It's all about what practical strategies can we bring in to help with that. I just go to the next one. So this is me. So I just thought I'd do a little background into what I've done previously in my career. So I started off in mental health. I've worked in a special needs school. Worked in a disability team where I worked with did home adaptations for children aged 0 to 19. Worked with architects and surveyors. I've worked in a community rehab team. So that's post discharge, getting people back from hospital, back to living in their homes independently. And most recently, I work in private practice with adults and children who've usually had some sort of medical injury. And most importantly, I have Marfan syndrome, so I'm quite well placed to talk to you about Marfan syndrome. Yay, first-hand experience. Um, so I thought I'd explain what occupational therapy is first. We have got a horrible title as an occupational therapist. Nobody knows what we do. So to be clear in this, I'm not anything to do with occupational health, and it's not to do just with work. So occupation is the everyday activities people want, need, or expected to do. So it's all about helping people to do the things, everyday things that matter to them most, like attending to their personal care, going to school, playing, working, or simply enjoying hobbies. And we work with everybody. We just age, it doesn't matter, disability, it doesn't matter. And we don't necessarily focus on the diagnosis. We focus on how that diagnosis affects you. We focus on what people can do, not what they can't do, and then find ways to build on their strengths and then remove the barriers and use strategies to adapt the environment so they can live as independently as possible. So it's OT, short for occupational therapy, is about unlocking potential and improving quality of life in the most practical and person-centered way. Need to move my keyboard closer. Hold on. So, starting off with, before we talk about fatigue, I always encourage people to make a list. What is the most important thing to you for you to do? Everyone is unique, and what they want to achieve in a day or a week is totally different for them. So it's really important for people to identify what is your priorities, what is your must-dos. Then ask yourself, what do I need to achieve this week, this month? What can be adapted, simplified, shared with others, postponed, and left out altogether, and protecting your energy for the things that matter most, which I shall touch on again in a minute. And that it's okay. You can't do everything, and that's absolutely fine. We don't have to do everything. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that we must be doing this, we must be doing that. You don't have to. It's absolutely fine to do what you need to do and no more. So, understanding fatigue and Marfan syndrome. So, it isn't just tiredness, it's physical and cognitive depletion, which is caused by muscles overworking to stabilize hypermobile joints. A physiotherapist who I work with told me about Marfan's patients have basically had to work 3 times as hard as everybody else just to maintain an upright posture, whether that be sitting, standing, everything is having to work that much more because we're missing connective tissue. So it's really important we're kind to ourselves. It's not our fault, it's physiological. Everything's working much harder, which contributes to our tiredness. The constant postural effort, particularly, as we know, lots of us Marfans are quite tall, and the low muscle tone that comes from the lack of connective tissue. The cardiovascular strain, it takes a lot more effort for our circulation in our body. So that takes more effort of the body, and then obviously reduced endurance because of that. And then sleep disturbances. If you're laying down and you've got particularly got joint problems, you're laying on one side, it hurts within minutes. You then need to change your position. You might wake up in pain. So we need to understand about that. And also just the anxiety, particularly with cardiac health or any part of Marfan, I think really, it can causes, we know anxiety can cause you to miss out on sleep. So these all contribute into what affects us with Marfan syndrome for tiredness. To the next one. So we need to look at the 4 Ps, which is prioritize, plan, pace, and position. So prioritize what, like I said at the beginning, what is truly important to you, what really matters. Focus your energy on the most meaningful tasks for you. Everything else can be shared, simplified, or postponed, or just not done at all. Plan your day and your week to match your energy peaks. When I first meet with clients, we always unpick what's your best time of your day. When are you most productive? When do you have your most energy? And work around that. So if you know that mid-morning, most people's mid-morning is your highest energy, plan the most important things you want to achieve then. Pacing yourself. So alternate between high energy activities and low energy activities. So we want to take it as something as basic as looking after your home, vacuum, and then sit and fold. So, and then just keep alternating between 2. So one high energy activity, one low energy activity, and then rest before you feel exhausted, not after you feel exhausted. And then position yourself and your environment, sit whenever possible, bring work closer, adapt your environment, which we'll get into in a minute as well. So your environment is the most cohesive to you achieving what you need to do when you're working, or whatever they might be. So this is actually these 4 Ps comes out of research that was done and shows that using these principles improve the quality of life and participation in long-term conditions, and they're just as effective for people with Marfan syndrome. So tools for prevention. So equipment and adaptation, tools, not last resorts. I can't tell you how many times I hear people say to me, I'm not that bad. I'll wait till I'm bad enough that I need to use a walking stick, a wheelchair, a toilet razor, all these things. The idea of tools is they're not meant to be a last resort. They are adaptive equipment. They equal empowerment. Is using equipment will help prevent any further injury to your joint. I see people lurching around, walking down the high street, and I was like, and clients of mine's like, why are you not using a walking stick maybe? And they're like, no, I can't have that. That's what old people use. I'm not going to use it. Yeah, if they had the walking stick, they would save themselves a lot of effort, number 1, because it links in fatigue. And number 2, it prevents injuries. All you need is to have that one fall or collapse, and then that spirals in and makes everything a lot worse. So examples of this is at home, you might have a shower chair in your shower. So when you're showering, you might find that you tire quite easily, as many Marfan patients do. You have a stool you can just perch on in there, have a grab rail. You probably find when you stand on one foot to wash your other foot, because obviously our joints are very lax, you probably wobble a bit, and then that puts you at risk of falling over, and it's also using a lot more energy. So think about what you can do to support yourself when you're doing these everyday tasks. In the community, mobility aids. I think there's a thought that if you use a wheelchair, you have to be in the wheelchair, a full-time wheelchair user. You don't. Wheelchairs can be used at any time, and I'll talk about that again in a minute. If each piece of equipment takes away a small bit of physical strain and gives that energy back for meaningful activity. So I always think of it as 1%. If you can save 1% of energy when you're in the shower, and 1% energy getting off the toilet, and 1% energy when you're cooking, you can add all those up, and then you can do the things you really want to do. I work with a child, and I think children are quite a bit more in tune with what their body needs and respond to that in a better way than adults do. I think we're very good at overriding what we should be doing. But he's ambulant, he can walk, however, he has severe fatigue. But what's really important to him as a 6-year-old boy is to go to the park and play football. Now, his local park is 20 minutes walk away from him. So we've provided him with a wheelchair. So he uses a wheelchair to go to the park. Once he's at the park, he runs around for 45 minutes playing football. Then he'll go, I need to go home now. He sits in the wheelchair and he goes home again. if we didn't have that, by the time he'd walked to the park, he wouldn't have that energy to play the football. And then by the time he got home, as with, with children when they're tired, his behaviour would have spiraled, and it would have been not an enjoyable time for him. He would have felt missed out on activity. So it's all about using the equipment that's available to us to manage your fatigue. A quick word about small equipment. Local authorities can supply you with small equipment. Usually get onto contact with your local authority. They usually have a self-referral form you can go through. They will identify, send out an occupational therapist, and then you can work with them and you can identify what it is you would need for your home, and that's provided for free. Obviously, there's loads and loads of websites as well. If you want to just skip that to speed it all up, you can just go onto a website and find out bits of equipment there. I would always recommend an OT assessment, just because there's lots of things that we might see as OTs that you might not realise you need and that's available. There's some very amazing, weird and wonderful equipment out there that people aren't generally aware of. So it's always good to have a specialist involved. Oh, sorry, getting caught up in my things. Right, OT and fatigue at home. So when I thought we'd look at different areas, we'd look at work, home, and in the community. So I thought we'd start on here first. So at the home, the OT supports the clients and families to create routines and spaces that reduce unnecessary energy strain. So that can be your physical environment. So there is local authorities also offer something called a Disabled Facilities Grant, or DFG. They are quite hard to get. They are means tested, but through that, it means you can get your environment, your home environment, adjusted. So that might be stair lifts, that might be converting your bathroom from a bath to a walk-in shower room. Might be some people, they do extensions, so they're all on the ground floor. They have everything on the ground floor in regard to toilets, bathrooms. So that's really important as well if we're looking at preserving the energy. If you're in a property where perhaps your toilet's upstairs, so maybe 5, 6, 7 times a day, you're having to walk up your stairs and walk back down again. That's using a massive amount of energy. So we need to be aware of that and about whether or not that could be worked around, whether that's adapting the environment. It might even be moving home, thinking ahead. I'm very much into future proofing. And if you know that that's very likely to be your story in the future, to think ahead of that and move before you need to move. That's always the key, move before you need to move. So then we look at things like washing and bathing, and I've already touched on obviously showers, having shower seats, grab rails. You can get bathing equipment. So if you do have a bath, you can get bath seats that help you in and out the bath. And of course, we're looking at minimising risk as well. Obviously, the slip risk is quite high if you're trying to get in and out the bath or in and out the shower without any equipment. And then obviously we know with Marfan syndrome, as soon as we damage ourselves, it's not a quick heal, is it? It takes a while. Dressing. So there's lots of different dressing supports around there. I heard earlier somebody was talking about putting on your socks and about people who have pain with that. There's special equipment you can use for that, so you're not having to bend down. Also, adjusting your clothing. If you struggle with small things, your fine motor skills might be affected because of your hypermobility. Look at items of clothing that hasn't got zips and buttons. Look for elasticated stuff. I think Primark now doing a whole adaptive range, which is really good as well. Moving around the home. So perhaps we could look at handrails up and down the stairs, making sure that areas aren't cluttered. You can move stuff. If you need to use aids such as a trolley. So if you need to move your food, say, from your kitchen to your dining room or your kitchen to your lounge, you can use little trolleys. They also support your weight. All this sort of stuff is going to help minimize the energy you're expending on these items and save this energy for the things you really want to do. Same for cooking and then for cleaning. I always put shopping in there as well, about get your online shop. They're available now. It's really handy that we can get that. So that saves a massive amount of energy. If you're not into food shopping, don't go. Order it online, get it delivered to you. And they will actually, if you let them know that you have mobility issues or medical issues, they will bring it all the way into the house for you as well. So I did as Victoria said, a webinar recently on OT, Marfan syndrome and access to education. So that is available on YouTube. So you're welcome to have a look at that there, where I do a bit more of a deep dive into that. But again, we need to be really aware of our young people and how they access education. one of the things is the timetable adjustments. I work with schools with various ways they like to support their young people. Some are more supportive than others. It's things like timetable adjustments. Some schools have told parents that no, we can't do permanent timetable adjustments. Yes, they can. They can absolutely do permanent timetable adjustments. And also the fact that we need to appreciate that fatigue ebbs and flows. You have some days you have more energy, other days you don't. And in order to have, it's the same that goes for work as well, you should be able to adjust how you engage with your education based on your energy levels. So it might be that you just do a part-time timetable of you just go in the mornings because you know that mornings is your high energy and the afternoons is not the high energy. So you go home and rest. I often recommend for a lot of the children I work with is that they have a break in the morning and a break in the afternoon. If you especially this works probably better in primary than secondary because primary is a bit more set up for it, but a nice long body bean bag, usually in the sensory room, or my son actually had one, he's got Marfan syndrome, in his classroom, and when they had their reading time, he'd lay on this full body bean bag. All your muscles are supported, so every part of your body is supported when you're laid on there, and just 10 minutes of that, and it's just amazing how it just recharges the body ready for the rest of the day. So that's really a good suggestion for children for morning and afternoon. Regular postural changes, and we know especially in secondary school they're sat at those lovely hard plastic chairs with the hard desks that don't move. They need to be able to get up and move. You quite often, as we know, Marfan, the joints, everything aches, everything's stiff, and that those regular postural changes help. And then again, that helps with the fatigue. Specialist seating and desks. Ideally, especially with Marfan, a lot of children are very, very tall, height adjustable desks. So a desk that they can adjust as they get taller, and it also means if they need to change their position, they can go and stand and they can do some work, they can sit for a bit. Office chairs are always really good to go with that because again, they're height adjustable, and we're just reducing all this strain on the body and having to maintain that upright posture. If you've got arms on a chair, you've got supportive, your feet are resting nicely on the floor. Another big thing for schools is dining rooms. They do like to do fixed plastic chairs or plastic stools. I've gone to one recently where they've got fixed round plastic stools onto a plastic table, and the stools can't be moved because they're fixed on there. It's just how any child can possibly sit, but let alone for a child with Marfan syndrome, where everything is, like I said, fighting to keep your body upright. And then you're on these chairs and it's meant to be your break time where you're meant to be able to rest and eat and recharge, and you're having to fight an enormous battle. So it's very much about getting that education for staff, so education of school staff, that dialogue from parents and OTs with the school staff to make sure they understand and appreciate what adjustments need to be made for that child in order for them to maximise their potential while they're at school. And then that obviously leads to writing equipment. Marfan syndrome, obviously, small thin pens, because I've got one here. This one I like because it's got the nice rounded bit at the bottom, but I can't hold things like this. As soon as I hold things like this, my hand screams at me to say, because it's the effort having to do it, everything's hypermobile. So again, about children using writing supports around pens and fatter pens. And the other thing I recommend, especially for secondary school children, is laptops. We need to be thinking long term. There's very few jobs, if any, now you use your handwriting for. So let's forget the handwriting. Let's just use a laptop. So they can use a laptop either with a dictation software, so they can use that to write with, or if they are going to type, that they have wrist supports with the keyboard. They have ergonomic mouses. And use that, and same for their GCSEs, and also that leads into extra time for exams. Obviously, exams are usually about 2 hours long, and that's a very, very long time for someone with Marfan syndrome to be sat at a desk working for. And with that extra time, they can then have movement breaks in the middle. They can have longer because obviously the fatigue, everything is a bit slower. Right. So a lot of what I've said is actually what carries through to employment as well. So flexible hybrid working. If you're having a low energy day, a high fatigue day, can you work from home that day? Is there any practical and reasonable adjustments? We like that, DDA, Disability Discrimination Act. I quote that quite a lot at people, must say. about finding that right, your employer supporting you in order to get the most out of you, and you be able to fulfill your work role, your occupation of work, as effectively as possible. So obviously this does very much depend on your employers. I think if you're employed by local government type people, like at schools and social services, hospitals, I think they're probably a bit more compliant, maybe. But it's getting that good relationship between the employer and the employee, and perhaps getting in somebody such as an occupational therapy as myself, and so who can actually do perhaps a little assessment and say, look, with these small adjustments, this can transform this person's work life. So, and again, physical environmental adjustments, so the height adjustable desks, the office chairs that are height adjustable might have lumbar supports, they've got armrests, micro breaks. As adults, I know it's very tempting when we have these micro breaks to scan our phones. That's not resting. When you have these micro breaks, if you have a staff room, that's fine. You can have got somewhere like a sofa you can lay on, brilliant. If not, go, if you have a car, lay your seat down, make sure as much of your body is supported as possible, and just take 10 minutes of just doing nothing, just so you're thoroughly letting all those muscles and your brain just have that break. So National Institutes for Clinical Excellence also highlighted the importance of pacing and environmental adjustments for fatigue management in long-term conditions. It's known out there, but we just need to keep highlighting it because it's so invisible. People can't see fatigue. Fatigue gets very overlooked, and that people are like, yeah, well, I'm a bit tired, I didn't sleep last night. And you're like, no, it's very, very different. Then we get on to fatigue management in the community. So we want to maximize the time you have your highest energy. So if you know that's going to be mid-morning, that's the time you do your appointments, you do your socializing, your shopping, your hobbies. Try and get it in that time. If you've got lots of things to do within the week, can you combine those multiple trips into one trip and get it done in that one time? Mobility aids, we talked about those previously. They could just transform people's lives. So just wheelchairs, that might be a shopping, one of those pull along shopping baskets, anything like that. Asking for support from loved ones or from people in shops. There's charities out there who will offer volunteers to come and help you with bits and pieces as well. And then, of course, in planning transport and parking. I've written on here my notes, blue badge. I know blue badges are quite hard to come by these days. They really cracked down on who gets them, and you have to get the highest rate of PIP in order to get it. And that's obviously quite a difficult thing to get as well. But I've got a number of clients who use Motability vehicles, and because of that, they can get their blue parking badge as well, which definitely helps if you can park close to the shops. Or it might be that if you do need to go shopping, you go in the morning or the evening. So it might not be your highest energy time, but it's quieter there. So there's less sensory overload from people around. There's less people generally. So you can park closer to doors, and try it that way. Exercise. Yeah. Exercise and Marfan syndrome. When you have Marfan syndrome, I know we don't really like exercise because it hurts and it's tiring and it's not that enjoyable. However, it's finding the right exercise. So movement is so important because we are missing that connective tissue. We need to be strengthening all around those joints. So the muscles we have, we need to keep those stronger, and then that will help with preventing the pain with the joints. And then in effect that manages your fatigue. Exercise regulates your circulation, it maintains strength, it improves your mood. We know that. So we're looking at things like a short, low impact sessions such as walking, swimming, gentle cycling, just things you can do gently. And I also think they're good social things as well. You know, if you can meet up with a friend, you know, instead of going to a cafe, go for a gentle walk somewhere. And again, use mobility aids if you need to. Swimming, again, is quite a nice little social thing. Stay within your energy limits and stop before fatigue. So again, don't keep going. I know it's very tempting for us to, right, I'm exercising, I feel great, I'm going to exercise, and then you just go hell for leather, and then you can't move again for the next week. So it's about doing little and often. A little bit and often is much better than one big workout every week and a half. Allow recovery days. So ensure that if you're going to do some physical exercise, or even if you're going out, do one day and the next day plan in I'm not going to do anything that day. I'm going to allow the chance for my body to recover. And as we know, stress and fatigue go hand in hand. Chronic stress keeps the body in fight or flight, basically. So when you're in fight and flight all the time, your body's using increasing amounts of energy, basically waiting for the lion to come and jump out on you. So with exercise, it helps calm that, and then that obviously allows your body to rest a bit more and not have such severe fatigue. Exercise also enhances sleep quality and helps improve posture. It's pretty good. Now, the next one is yoga. Now, the reason I put yoga in is that currently I'm doing my yoga teacher training. In fact, I'm there today and I've popped out to come and do this seminar, and I'm going to pop back out there in a minute when it's done. I think yoga for me as a Marfan patient has made a massive difference to how I feel in my body, my fatigue, and how I view my body, because it's very easy to get into that thing of like, my silly body, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, and you focus on the negatives. And I found the first thing I would say is find the right teacher. There's some very hardcore yoga teachers who probably aren't the best regards to that, but there's some excellent gentle yoga teachers who allow you to listen to your body, just do gentle movement, and it's great for your mobility. It helps the strength of the joints. It's adaptable. There's no competing. You're not even competing with yourself. It's just about gentle movement. That comes into breath work. It regulates your stress and supports your cardiovascular health. Quite often when we're stressed, we don't take deep breaths. We're breathing very shallowly. So the fact that you're doing a practice that helps you take deep breaths is brilliant and helps support all that. The mind-body awareness, it builds awareness of your fatigue. You become more tuned into your body, so you can anticipate when you are perhaps overdoing it and when you should pull back and when you should be doing a bit more. And then obviously there's the relaxation recovery, meditation bit. So I love a yoga practice. The best bit is the meditation at the end. Basically, I never shut my brain off. My brain never shuts off. It's always jumping around. But even with my brain jumping around, I've still come away from it feeling incredibly rested. And again, that can then help with the sleep as well. So yoga teaches pacing, self-awareness and self-compassion, all at the heart of fatigue management. So it's powerful stuff. So last few things is integrating all the approaches. So across the home, school, work, and in the community, OT helps people with Marfan syndrome to understand their personal energy patterns, apply the 4 Ps, which was, can I remember? Pacing, posture, and 2 others that I can't remember off the top of my head, and then use equipment and adaptations proactively to prevent injury and conserve energy. Don't be scared of equipment. Don't be scared of adaptations. They're there to help you. And then balancing your rest, your movement and well-being activities, and then building confidence in communicating your needs and boundaries. And I think that's something we don't like to do. We don't like to, I find for a lot of clients, don't like to perhaps be saying all the time or at all that how they actually feel. And it's really important that you can say how you feel and you have that confidence to say, I can't do that today. However, tomorrow, mid-morning, I'm there. It's about finding that balance and having that confidence to say that to people. So fatigue management is not about limitation, it's about empowerment. If you can do fatigue management, you are empowering yourself. Through occupational therapy, you learn to respect your energy, adapt your environments, and stay engaged in your roles that give you life purpose. And the goal isn't to do more, it's to do what matters most and to do it sustainably. This is me, Natasha Woodgate. I'm now an advisor on the Marfan Trust Helpline, and that's my company there as well, redwoodot.co.uk. And any questions?
Thank you very much, Natasha. I think the comments attest to how your talks resonated with everyone.
Oh, good. I haven't seen those.
I mean, you're a trove of knowledge on how to integrate things into your daily life just to ease yourself. I'm conscious that you're returning to your yoga session, but can you accommodate a couple of questions?
Of course, absolutely.
So Jessie has asked, have you got any advice on anything I can do to help me overcome and get better at telling others I have Marfan mobility issues, getting over the internalized stigma and shame about it, so I can be more open, ask for more support, or do what I need in different situations to avoid masking it?
I think education is educating others, really. And that is not easy, but it's about telling people this is Marfan syndrome, and whether that might be obviously through the Marfan Trust website. They've got a good few resources on there in regard to leaflets and bits and pieces, and just communicating. And I know it's so hard to tell people about what it is, and everyone goes, "What's Marfan? Martians? Martians?" No, Marfan. So it is very difficult. But it is education, and that's the things I have to do a lot when I go into schools and into workplaces as well. It's like you need to understand what this condition is and how invisible it is, because it's not very obvious for many people that they have Marfan syndrome, and it's about educating. Sorry, I don't know how helpful that is.
I think Jessie also has problems over exercising, because it's so sort of advised around health issues. She's felt like it's the only thing she can do to help herself.
Yeah. I think as well with Marfan as well, because we find it very easy, and I have to watch this in my yoga training. It's very easy to over stretch yourselves any sort of way, in the fact that because our bodies can do it doesn't mean we should be doing it. That's the difficult bit, because I've probably gravitated to yoga to start with because I can touch my toes, but that's because I've got a really long arm span. Nobody else knows that though. It makes me look really sporty. So yeah, but I have to be very careful. My knees buckle backwards, and I can absolutely see what she means about that, about how taking it easy, which is why I said about it's better to do light, gentle exercise for short amounts of periods and then stop before you feel tired. Because I think that's what we've always been taught. You had a great workout. If you feel really tired at the end, we don't want that. We want to just do a very short burst of exercise at our most high energy levels.
Sarah wonders on the subject of exercise. She thought yoga stretching was to be avoided. Pilates aggravated her Arno Chiari and cervical instability. She was in a neck brace for 10 months.
Oh my gosh. I think again, it's being able to listen to your body and having the right teacher, because you do have to listen to your body. I mean, it's very difficult, I know, and I have to constantly adapt what I do, which is why I've wanted to train as a yoga teacher, because I want to work with people like me who need to listen to their bodies. And you should be taught in anything about if you have anything that's not right for you, about adaptations to that, which links in really nicely to my OT work. I'm all about the adaptations. And also, again, it's that advocating for yourself to be able to say, I'm not doing this. I know this is going to hurt me. So I mean, it's very personal thing what works for you. For me, for yoga, when I first started it, I had the wrong teacher, and I thought this is definitely not for me. I'm hurting myself. But then I found the right teacher who encouraged me to listen to my body, and I started listening to my body, and that made a big difference. So yeah.
Sarah wonders, as an OT, have you noticed high rates of neurodiversity in Ehlers-Danlos?
I know EDS is linked to neurodiversity, but I don't know from Marfan syndrome point of view, because obviously EDS is linked to a lack of collagen, whereas we're a lack of fibrillin. So I haven't noticed a difference hugely. No.
I think it's diagnostic overshadowing. I think we're just not researching it. Both me and my daughter have got ADHD, autism. I thought there was research about ADHD and learning disabilities in Marfans at high rates.
I don't know. Perhaps Dr. Child might be able to fill us in on that, but I don't
So,
think I know about.
I think Jessica Eccles' work, who's looking at hypermobility generally, is throwing up a connection. And wouldn't it make sense that your brain structure would also be affected if you had Marfans? So I personally think it's an area within the Marfan community that we should be paying more attention to, because there's a lot of misdiagnosis of autism and ADHD, which, if you were diagnosed earlier, would help with the mental health side of Marfan syndrome as well as the physical stuff. So I think there's some research ongoing in children, but I do think it's something we should be paying attention to in the Marfan community. I think the EDS literature dominates, but Marfan's affects our connective tissue as well.
That's true. Are there any further questions for Natasha? Because I know we've seeped into our lunch break, which is a very good sign, because of course
everyone's hungry.
That's engagement. lots of thank yous. Yes, I think if we can take lunch now, and perhaps, I don't know, Anne or Jason, if we could maybe resume at 1:30, if that's okay for Professor Christoph. I think we're meant to resume at 1:20, but if we allow ourselves a further 10 minutes for lunch at 1:30, everyone. Okay, no one's disagreeing with me, so I'm going to make a unilateral here. Thank you very much, Natasha. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Welcome.